I have no idea where we're headed as I back out of my garage. I point us toward town, wandering the roads as I think. We drive down the main road. I turn past all the restaurants. Town is getting quieter. The tourism season has come to an end, so it's mostly locals out, enjoying one of the last nice days before fall and winter become one season, and it just starts raining until June. South Whidbey Island is made up of several smaller towns that hug the water. Clinton, Maxwellton, Langley, and Freeland. And right in the middle of the island is the high school. We end up in the old part of Langley, and I park the car in front of a barber shop that's closed today. We climb out, and Dallin waits patiently while I look up and down the road, deciding what to do. "Come on," I say, nodding my head down the road. There's a little park there, with an overlook and a narrow pathway that leads down to the rocky shoreline of the ocean. "How far do you want this taken?" Dallin asks as we set off down the sidewalk. There are a few others out, and I see groups of people inside the shops. My heart does this weird jump. My stomach does a little turn. We need to sell this, because just being out here exposed, I'm scared. I'm really scared. Like Harlan could be around any corner hiding with a knife, like some terrible horror movie. So I'm going to need Dallin around, at school, as much as I can possibly get away with. I reach over and lace my fingers through his. Awkwardly, I look up at him. I try to smile, but I don't think I manage. He looks back down at me, and he doesn't necessarily smile either. There's a lot of complicated thoughts going through both our heads. This is so multifaceted, so dark, so messed up. But neither of us says anything as we look forward toward the park I'm aiming for. "Do you ever think things could have ended up differently?" Dallin asks as we cross to the railing that overlooks the ocean. "That thing could have gone right that night, and we could have actually killed him. Was there a way it could have worked?" I look out over the water and see the mainland not that far in the distance. I wrap my hands around the cool metal railing. Dallin wraps his arms around my waist for show, standing close. We speak low, quiet. We need these words to stay between us. "I don't know," I say, shaking my head. "I think we were kids. None of us were killers. Things went so far. And in the end, some of us almost died." His grip on me tightens a little. And I'm out there again, in the ocean, looking up through the salt water, seeing Mr. Anderson's face ripple above me. "I wish I could go back to that night and do a few things over," Dallin says, his voice dark and rough. "Me too," I say, my grip on the railing tightening. I'd make sure we slit his throat the second he stepped aboard that damn boat. "Cassidy?" I whip around at the sound of my name, too close for comfort. I find Ava Linder, standing just 10 feet behind us, a curious and surprised little smile on her face. "And Dallin Kelly." I force myself to smile, but I don't have to fake the blush. We both turn to face her, and I tell myself to step into Dallin's side. He doesn't hesitate in wrapping his arm around my waist again. "Now that's a pairing I never, ever would have called," she says, tucking her hands into her pockets, looking at us with surprise and interest. She's the main secretary at my school. We talk. A lot during the school year. "Surprise!" I say, laughing it off, acting embarrassed, which I am. Summer happens, and the unexpected comes around. Dallin's a pretty good actor. He just chuckles and leans over to press a kiss to my temple. "Sorry, been keeping her too busy for her to call and give you the gossip, apparently." Ava shakes her head, smiling. "Well, I never would have called it," she says. "But you two make a surprisingly cute couple." I laugh awkwardly, tilting my head toward Dallin for further effect. "Thanks." Ava takes 2 steps further down the street. "I expect a full report on Tuesday in the teacher's lunchroom." "Oh, I stutter, looking at Dallin, who meets my eyes and gives me this very convincing, warm look. "Sorry, Dallin just told me he's going to bring me lunch, and we were going to eat in my classroom." Ava raises an eyebrow at me, a coy smile on her lips. "Well, I expect an even more detailed report on Wednesday, then." I smile and laugh. "You got it." She winks at us, and Dallin squeezes me tighter as he waves goodbye to her. I let out a hard breath as soon as she's far enough away not to hear. This is, I say, shaking my head, trying to find the words. I catch Dallin's eyes. You're surprisingly good at this. And you're surprisingly bad at it, he says, crooking a real smile. That pulls a real laugh from me. I shake my head and sigh. Come on, I say. I think we've accomplished what was needed. Let's swing by the high school and pick up your truck. With an affirmative noise, Dallin slips his hand back into mine, and side by side we walk back down the sidewalk, drawing dozens of curious looks. When we reach the high school, I'm not surprised that there are half a dozen cars in the parking lot. It's Sunday, and while we technically have part of tomorrow to finish preparing, we'll be stuck in meetings for most of the day. This is the big warm-up, the night before the marathon. Dallin's truck is parked in the middle row, all on its own. There were a lot more cars yesterday. I pull up to the parking space next to it, but Dallin doesn't immediately make a move to get out. Both our eyes are studying the other cars, looking at the main doors, watching, waiting. I'm going to see him tomorrow, I say. We'll be going over new policies and all of the changes. All boring, dull stuff, but we're all required to be there. He can't try anything with everyone else around, Dallin says. And from his tone, I feel like he's trying to comfort himself as much as me. My eyes drift from the main doors, trailing along the windows to the left. Mentally, I walk through the school, both how it is now and how things were 10 years ago. And there, through the last window on the left, I see movement. Dallin, I say, my heart instantly in my throat. His old classroom. Dallin's eyes tear to the windows, searching for the right one. I see him through the window. He's got it open, letting in fresh air. He moves around the classroom, getting things ready. There's a look of concentration on his face. His brows are slightly furrowed. His lips are set thin. Goosebumps flash across my skin. All the tiny hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. You sure you can do this, Cassidy? Dallin asks. It takes me 4 times to swallow. I can't find any words for several long moments. This is my life, not his. I'm not going to let him scare me out of it. Dallin doesn't respond. I don't know what he'd say. Mr. Anderson continues moving around his classroom, bending and pulling. I can't see them, but I'd guess he's moving the desks, arranging them however he'd like. He always makes the pretty girl sit in the front row, I say, my skin crawling. The bigger the boobs, the closer they sat to his desk. I noticed, Dallin says, his voice growing rougher, darker. I think he thought he was being careful and sly, but I saw his eyes wandering, I say. My grip on the steering wheel tightens. Dallin doesn't say anything else, but I feel the anger and revenge rolling off him like a physical entity. I see the muscles in his forearms grow tighter as his hands curl into fists. Right back to your house? He asks. Yeah, I answer. Dallin gets out of my car, closing the door behind him. I keep my eyes on Harlan as Dallin gets into his truck and starts the engine. But he doesn't look our direction. I put my car into drive and start toward the main road, Dallin following right behind me. I look back toward the school as I pass by, and my entire body chills to the bone. Harlan looks up. He looks from Dallin's truck to my car. I can't tell if he can see inside my window. I can see him, but can he see me? Would he recognize me 10 years later? My head spins as I look away back at the road. I swear I can still feel eyes on me, even as I turn right onto the road and pull far out of sight. When we get home, I pull into the garage and leave the door open while Dallin parks in the driveway. He walks in through the garage and I close it, wishing there was a better, more secure way to lock a garage door. You think he could see us? Dallin asks as we step back into the house. I'm going to plan that he did, I say as we walk through the dining room. I grab the notebook laying on the table and flop back onto the couch with it in my hands. I've read these words over and over, but I flip through them knowing just where I'm aiming for. December 19th, 2009. I didn't think it was a good idea, but the guys had had enough. We'd had a big test the day before, so we knew that Mr. Anderson was going to be at the school late. So all of us waited, watching his classroom. It's right there, visible from the parking lot, so we knew exactly when he turned off his light and walked out of his room. The guys had ski masks on. They were all black. Mr. Anderson's car was parked toward the back of the parking lot, which was lucky. He was far enough away from the security cameras that we couldn't be seen. Cassidy and I waited in the car, down around the back end, behind the soccer field. We could see everything. The guys hid behind his car, and when Mr. Anderson got to it, they jumped him. All three of them are jocks, some of the fittest guys in our school. So Mr. Anderson went down, hard. They kicked him, punched him, left him bleeding on the pavement. We tried being subtle. We tried keeping our hands clean. But Emma was still coming to school with bruises. He still wasn't being caught. He had to be punished. But when car lights flashed through the parking lot, the guys had to get out of there. They left Mr. Anderson there and ran to the car. I'm hoping that he passed out. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that he couldn't see anything through the dark. We kept the lights off as we peeled out of there. But this is Mr. Anderson we're talking about. And I don't think any of us will ever feel comfortable again until he's locked behind bars. I glance over, looking at Dallin's hand. He sits next to me on the couch, reading along. Because even though it's a horror story we've read 100 times, a horror story we penned ourselves, we can't help but relive it. Dallin curls his left fist, making the white scar across two of his knuckles stand out more starkly. It probably wouldn't have scarred so bad if we'd taken you to the hospital, I say, even though I know the words are pointless. Why? He asks, looking at it. You did a fine job. I huff a noise, shaking my head. Just 'cause my mom was a nurse doesn't mean I have her skills. Dallin crooks a little smile in one corner of his mouth, shaking his head. I've had worse sew-up jobs. That seems unlikely, I call him out. But my fingers turn the page, finding Landon's handwriting next, his version of that night. It's the same, only he talks about the pathetic noises Mr. Anderson made as Landon kicked him in the ribs. Dallin's own account is next. He deserved a lot worse. Only one sentence. Short and complete. The next entry is in my own handwriting. January 1st, 2010. I know it's Christmas break, but something has to have happened to Emma. No one has seen her. No one has been able to get a hold of her. She's not answering texts. We've all driven by her place, and I don't think anyone has been home. It snowed 3 days ago, and no one has driven in or out of their driveway. Maybe this is our fault. Maybe we did this. Mr. Anderson missed the 3 days before Christmas break after that night in the parking lot. But so did Emma. It's like they've just disappeared. What is he doing to her? Is he punishing her for what we did? It's not enough. It's never going to be enough to make her safe. We have to get him arrested somehow. But he's good. He talks his way out of everything. What more can we do? He's an adult. People trust him. We're just a bunch of kids. Who's ever gonna believe us? Especially since Emma won't come forward. I flip through the pages, my stomach sinking further and further. I skim the pages as things escalated, as things got worse, as Emma came back and told us how much worse things had gotten after that night. It went to a whole new level. So we stepped it up. More and more, and worse and worse. And then the spiral started. January 24th, 2010. He's been watching us. I swear I'm not just being crazy. Mr. Anderson rearranged the seating. He took Isabel from the back row and put her right up next to Cassidy. And right behind the two of them, crammed in the same row, me, Landon, and Dallin. He's grouped us right together. Why else would he ever do that? What are the odds, considering there are 24 of us in his class, that he'd put the 5 of us together? And Emma is on the far side of the class, as far away from us as she could be. I swear he's looking at us every 6 seconds. He knows. He has to have figured it out. He could have seen Isabel's license plate as we drove away. He's friends with the cops. He could have gotten them to run the plate. I don't know how he figured out the rest of us. But he knows. I swear he knows. Chad's handwriting is erratic and hard to read at points. He always had the most violent ideas but the weakest stomach to execute them. I flipped through more pages, marveling that things could escalate further, but they did. They got so much worse. "Come on, Cassidy," Dallin says, yanking me back into the present. He reaches over and takes the notebook from my hands, closing it. He climbs to his feet and holds out a hand to me. "You can't keep reliving this. Let's eat something, and then you can finish getting ready for tomorrow." I look up at him, and the fear creeps a little deeper into my stomach. I'm doubting myself now, doubting my own bravery and commitment. We almost died. I almost died. And tomorrow I'm going to walk into that school and face Harlan Anderson once more. But I take Dallin's hand and tell myself that, somehow, we're going to fix it. Chapter 5. I get dressed in the morning. I do my hair. I put on my makeup. I go through all the motions without realizing I'm doing anything but obsessing over what I'm going to have to do today. But time seems to double in speed. I feel like I woke up, blinked, and then it was time to head to school. Dallin drives me in his truck. He parks in front of the school, right in the middle, where he has a great view of the front door. "My meetings will be about 3 hours," I tell him, "and then I have a few things to wrap up in my classroom." "Call me as soon as your meetings are done," Dallin says. It's kind of impressive how Dallin can just slip into this, take charge personality in these kinds of situations. He's never been much of a leader, but here, under these circumstances, it's an entirely different story. "Okay," I say, and my words come out hoarse. I grab my bag from the floor and slip out of the truck. Señorita Sanchez steps out of her car, parked just one row ahead of us. I smile as I chat with her, ask about her summer. We talk about the upcoming school year. But really, I'm just exceptionally grateful not to have to be walking into the school alone, because my eyes are scanning the sidewalk and then the hallway, searching for signs of Harlan. Normally, a school of only teachers would be quiet, but not this morning. The principal has music blasting over the speakers, revving everyone up for the next 9 months of battle. I see a steady stream of my coworkers bustling about, either going from the parking lot straight to the auditorium or coming from their classrooms having arrived exceptionally early to make up for their procrastination. I scan the small crowd. I look for black-framed glasses, dirty blonde hair, green eyes. But I don't see him. Until Señorita Sanchez and I step into the auditorium. He sits on the farther side from where we entered. I can be thankful for that. He sits back, one arm strung casually along the back of the seats. He chats with Mr. Perry, who teaches history. He smiles, laughs. They seem to be having a good time, just a few chums catching up. Except Mr. Perry has only been here for 6 years. They wouldn't have known each other from before. Harlan is charming. That's part of the problem. I take a seat. Harlan looks up and meets my eyes then. I should be better at this. I should fake a smile, or just look away like nothing at all is the matter. But I hold his eyes, my expression frozen in a mix of hatred and horror. Harlan's eyes are dark, serious. But only for a second, before I see something twist in his expression. And then he smiles. A chill rolls its way down my back, all the way from the top of my head down into every one of my smallest toes. I tear my eyes away from him and look to the stage where the principal begins the meeting. I should be paying attention. I should be listening. This is important stuff that I need to know. Instead, my gaze shifts to the bag at my feet. There, I can just see the silver shine of spiral binding. Finally, an hour into the meeting, I can't help it. I reach forward, grab the notebook, and I flip to where I left off yesterday. There's a series of short entries. February 1st, 2010. He failed me. I know I studied for that test, and I know I turned in that homework. But during drill team today, the coach told me I was off the team because I'm failing biology. He has to know. He's going after us. He failed me and got me kicked off the drill team. Me. February 3rd, 2010. Someone sent a letter to the UW coach telling them I'm withdrawing. I've lost my spot on the team, lost my scholarship. He's messing with my life, my future. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Chad. February 7th, 2010. No one else touches my truck.
No one else drives it. But I found a trail of gas leaking from my tank when I rolled into the house. He put regular gas in my tank. It's a diesel. It's going to cost me over $1,000 to get it fixed. Dallin.
February 11th, 2010. He killed my cat. She never leaves the yard, but this afternoon I came home and she was lying on the front porch. Someone ran her over with a car. I can't tell if she was alive long enough to try to get home or if he put her there. But she's dead, and I know he did it. Isabel.
February 14th, 2010. Everyone in town is saying shit about my dad. For some reason, everyone seems to think he had an affair. No one seems to know with who, but there's talk. More than talk. People are asking about it in school. We left church because of all the whispers. People keep calling the house. Dad's not having an affair. He swears it. Mom knows it. Someone's spreading rumors, turning the whole of South Whidbey against us. It's him. Who else would it be? No one else would have a reason.
Landon.
After months of trying to take him down and failing, because somehow Mr. Anderson was always one step ahead, he came back at us, picking the things we cared about the most and sabotaging them. Mr. Anderson didn't just play a physical game. It was a psychological one, showing us he would go after what mattered most. It was a message. Leave Emma to him, or pay the price. But as we watched Emma decline, as Isabel and I watched her sob and held her in the girls' bathroom, we all knew there was no going back. We'd keep going after him until Emma was safe. With the rustle of movement, I look up to find the meeting is over. I snap the notebook closed and tuck it into my bag, but I don't get to my feet immediately. I pretend to be digging for something important, stalling while others clear out. I keep a careful eye, though. I'm not about to be left alone with Harlan in this auditorium. Thankfully, he doesn't hesitate. He gets right up and walks out with Mr. Perry, still talking and laughing like he's the most friendly and innocent guy in the world. I call Dallin as soon as Harlan's out of sight. "I'll be right there," he says. And as I continue to take my time gathering my bag, and then making my way toward the door, I ask myself how the hell I'm going to do this. Chapter 6. It's the first day of school, which means I'm going in a half an hour earlier than normal. The parking lot is only filled with cars belonging to teachers. There's no crowd walking in yet. My hands are shaking as I climb out of Dallin's truck. I was too nervous to eat anything this morning, which is just making my stomach feel sick. Dallin looks over at me as we walk around to the front of the truck. He's got one of my bags slung over his shoulder, and I carry the other. With a serious, dark look on his face, he reaches over, taking my hand. I swallow all the nervous knots in my throat and walk with him up to the front doors. Harlan. 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 His name keeps echoing through my head over and over. I'm looking every direction, shifty-eyed and nervous. But as I walk through the office, I see no signs of him. All the people in there make a big deal about Dallin, utterly excited that I'm dating someone again. He smiles and plays the part far smoother than I'd ever expect. They tease us about what we're really going to be doing in my classroom during lunch. Dallin smiles and waves as we walk out of the office, my papers in hand. But the second we're out, he's stone-faced again, looking up and down the hallways. My classroom is on the opposite side of the school from Mr. Anderson's. I've never been more grateful that I'm located clear at the back. With every step past the common room, I breathe a little easier. "He's not going to try anything while you're here at school," Dallin says again as we walk together. "But keep any eye on your lunch and don't drink anything you didn't bring from home." I nod, though I'm hardly hearing him. I'm wondering about my break period, about the walk back to the car. I'm wondering about lunch in the teacher's lounge, knowing I can't avoid it every day. I push the door to my classroom open and step inside, walking right under the sign above the door that reads Miss Walsh. Suddenly, I wish we were married, that I didn't have the same last name I did when I was in high school. Dallin makes a walk around the classroom as I put my things down on my desk. I don't know what he's looking for, but I'm grateful for his diligence. "I need to get some security cameras in here," he says, looking up at the corners. Obvious ones, and hidden ones. "Obvious ones are out," I say, folding my arms across my chest. "Administration would freak out." Dallin nods, looking around the classroom, and I know he's planning where to hide them. I want one showing the inside and outside of the door, and those windows. I look at them. My windows face the north side of the school, pointing out to the baseball field. My eyes slide up to the clock, noting I only have 10 minutes until the warning bell rings. Already I hear the sounds of students out in the halls, fighting with their lockers on the first day, reuniting with the friends they've hardly seen all summer. How am I ever supposed to concentrate on my job? I dig into my bag, pulling out the folder of syllabi. I set to placing one on each desk. I'm going to be working out in my truck, Dallin says, taking half the stack from me and helping. Anything happens, you call me. I don't care if you're in the middle of class. I just nod, not finding any words. My stomach is too sick. I'll be right here when the lunch bell rings, he says. 12:15, right? I nod, and something in the back of my mind is impressed he remembers. The first student wanders in, taking note that there are 2 adults in here instead of 1. Dallin and I look at each other, and my stomach sinks, knowing he has to leave now. I'll see you at lunch, he says, holding my eyes, making a million promises and warnings. Okay, I say. My voice comes out hoarse and quiet. And then he's gone, disappearing through the door as the warning bell rings and 2 other students walk in. My palms are sweating, and I wipe them on my black slacks. I'm always a little nervous on the first day of school, even though this is my 5th year. But this year I'm hardly even thinking about the fact that I'm about to be the teacher of 80 different students. I'm talking with Isabel and Emma in the girls' bathroom, showing her pictures, then facing her utter panic. I'm in that parking lot watching as 3 friends beat up an adult man. I'm sneaking things into a cup of coffee meant for the same man. I'm sitting around a lunch table talking low and hushed, looking at our phones for ways to sabotage a boat. I've done some dark, horrible things in this school. Things that could get me arrested. But things I can't regret, because in the end, Emma was safe. So I roll back my shoulders as the bell rings. I smile as I look out over my first batch of students. 21 freshmen, here on their first day of high school. Don't be like me, I think as I introduce myself. Mind your own business, and don't try to kill any of your teachers. 3 classes. I make it through all of them. I don't know what I expected, Mr. Anderson to burst into my classroom during second period and say, "I know what you did 10 years ago," and shoot me with a gun. No. He's so much more subtle and sneaky than that. The bell rings at the end of third period. I gather up my papers, stacking and setting them on my desk. When I look up, I see Dallin standing just outside my door, waiting for all the students to clear out and head to the lunchroom. With his eyes fixed on mine, he walks in, carrying a bag with our lunch. "Everything go okay?" he asks, looking me up and down for any traces of harm. I nod. Yeah, nothing happened. Just a normal day. Dallin nods and sets the bag on my desk. He starts taking out the food he made up the day before. "You see all the texts yet?" "No," I say as my stomach drops. I pull open the bottom drawer and dig through my purse for my phone. I find a dozen messages on the screen when I unlock it. Landon. "He's running a place just south of the high school. Only signed a 6-month contract." Dallin. "That doesn't get him through the end of the school year." Isabel. "Shit! I don't like the sound of that. Cass, you really need to quit." Chad. "I've been doing some digging on him all night. Got my contacts to check into him this morning. He has been living in Michigan for the last year. Worked at a pharmacy as a tech. He abandoned his lease over a month ago. Still trying to figure out where he was before that." Dallin. "We saw him yesterday at the school. Nothing happened. We're sticking together. We'll figure out what else is going on." I look up at Dallin. "Maybe he couldn't find a longer lease?" I ask, jumping back up to the parts that are most concerning. "Housing has been tight around here lately." Dallin shakes his head and shrugs. "Could be. Hate to say it, but I kind of doubt it, though." I nod, sitting down at my desk. Dallin pulls up a chair and slides a plate to me. "Thanks." I bite into the sandwich, looking at Dallin. He keeps his eye on his food, focused, though I can tell his mind is elsewhere. "We can't keep doing this all school year," I say. "You're going to have to go back to work." His eyes rise up to meet mine. "I work from home. It's fine." "Who do you work for?" I ask as I lick a bit of mayo from my finger. "I work for myself. he says, taking another bite. You trying to be cryptic and evasive? I ask. He looks up again. I'm a freelance software engineer, he says, looking up at me from beneath dark eyelashes. New startups pay me to write their programs, web stuff, online stores. Boring stuff like that. And you didn't need to go to college to learn how to do that? I ask, smirking at him. All it takes is a computer and the interest to learn these days, he replies, matching my smile. I raise an eyebrow, surprised. I never would have guessed, Dallin Kelly. He huffs a laugh, grabbing a carrot stick and biting into it. You might know my darkest secret, Cassidy Walsh, but you don't know everything. I concede a nod and dig in, knowing the clock is ticking. At 2 minutes until the bell, several students make their way in. I help Dallin pack up and walk with him to the door. I'll be back right after school, he says, and I wonder at his eyes that drift from my eyes down to my toes and slowly back up again. Wait here for me. Okay, I say, folding my arms across my chest, and I watch as he walks away. It's him and I again, sharing secrets in the halls of South Whidbey High. He's older now. His hair is longer. But those are the same broad shoulders as then, the same strong hands capable of catching a football, the same legs capable of sprinting him across a football field. He could have played in college if he'd cared to show up for all of his classes, but he still made something of himself, even if none of us ever would have predicted the outcome. I smile, shaking my head, and turn back into my room as students continue filing in for the last class of the day. As promised, Dallin is at my door the moment the bell rings. My students are up and out of their seats in 0.2 seconds. I quickly gather up my things while Dallin waits just inside the classroom. Sliding it all into my bag, I walk to his side, and neither of us says anything as we step out into the hall. Any other day of the school year, I'd be staying for at least another 30 minutes, going over homework assignments or working on the next day's lesson plans. But it's the first day, and everyone knows not much gets accomplished. We make our way down the hall, and then another, my eyes fixed on the main doors. We're almost there, almost out of this school of horrors, almost to freedom where we can talk about our next move. But just then the door to the office opens. Madison Kemper, who teaches another science class, steps out, and right behind her is Mr. Anderson. Cassidy, Maddie says with a cheery smile. How was your first day? My stomach drops, and Dallin and I both stop suddenly. My eyes shift from her to Mr. Anderson, who stops just to the side of Madison, sliding his hands into his pockets. It was fine, I say. My voice comes out a little tight, a little too high-pitched. Yours? Well, I'm still alive, she jokes. Harlan has quite the story to tell about someone messing with his Bunsen burners. Another time, Dallin says, looking at Harlan. We really need to get going. I'm sorry, Madison says, her gaze shifting to Dallin. I don't think we've met. Are you a new teacher here? Mr. Kelly here was a former student of mine. All of my organs disappear and melt into the floor beneath my feet when Mr. Anderson speaks up. His voice is cool, controlled, casual. As was Miss Walsh, he adds, his cool green eyes sliding to meet mine. That's right, Madison says, completely oblivious to anything but the surface value of the conversation. I completely forgot you went to this school, Cassidy. I give a nod, but it feels painful, because I swear there's a baseball stuck in my throat. Cassidy and Dallin made quite the team back in high school, Mr. Anderson says. I shouldn't be surprised to find they've become a couple. Madison's eyes go back to Dallin and I, evaluating the two of us. I thought you were dating that Patrick guy. We broke up, I say. Again, my voice sounds hoarse. A small smile curls on Mr. Anderson's face. It's very nice to see you two again. I'm sure I'll be seeing you around plenty. It's bound to be an interesting year, Miss Walsh. I think I manage a little nod, but I'm not sure. I swear my brain is flickering in and out of functionality. Fear and anger and revenge are trying to take control of my abilities. But Dallin grabs my hand. He says something polite, and he pulls me down the hall. Suddenly it's bright, and fresh air hits my face. I blink 5 times as Dallin quickly hauls me across the parking lot back to his truck. He pulls the passenger door open for me. I climb in, breathing hard. He gets in, tossing my bag into the back seat. I shake my head. Twice. 3 times. A dozen. "We can't do this," I say, staring at the front doors of the school. "We can't live in this fear again. We can't live in a constant state of anticipation and uncertainty and dread." Dallin reaches over the center seat and grabs my hands. I didn't realize that I was picking at my cuticles, making one of them bleed. I look over, meeting his eyes. "We have to finish what we started," I say. And for the first time all day, my voice is calm. Even. "We have to kill him." Chapter 7. "This is murder we're talking about." Chad's voice comes through the speaker of Dallin's phone, which lays on my dining table. "We're not kids anymore. I think we all understand the consequences of getting caught better than we did back then. We need to finally get him arrested." "On what charges?" Dallin growls, standing at the table with his hands braced flat on it. "We still don't know where he was most of the past 10 years. As far as we know, Emma was his only victim. He might have tried killing me and Cassidy, but it wasn't like our hands were clean." "You're not here, Chad," I say. I'm sitting in a chair, next to where Dallin is standing. Landon stands in the kitchen, his arms folded across his chest. "Not that I want you to be. You're safer where you are. You need to keep your family safe. But have you really forgotten what it felt like? It's hard to live being afraid every second." Isabel speaks up, her voice coming through the speaker via the conference call. I nod, though none of them can see it. "Anyone know any hitmen?" Landon asks, and from his tone, I'm not entirely sure if he's joking or not. "Maybe." And I'm shocked into silence at Chad's response. "There's a guy I know from church. I remember him saying something about his brother who just got out of prison, that he takes care of problems." "We're not hiring a hitman," Dallin says. His expression darkens and he shakes his head. "That leaves a trail and involves someone outside this circle. This stays between us." "Then how do we do it without getting our hands dirty?" Isabel asks. "We tried poisoning him once. That didn't work." "We break into his house and suffocate him with his pillow," Landon says. "There's no chance he doesn't have security cameras," Dallin counters. "Not after last time." "A gun would end it all real quick," Isabel says, though her tone says she hates the words. "Any of us really ready to shoot him point blank?" I ask. No one says anything. Chad lets out a harsh breath, which carries through over the phone. I shake my head. Dallin looks over at me, and I see the conflict in his eyes. "I can't believe we're having to consider this," I say, my voice tight. "We're talking about killing someone." "Kidnapping him and shipping him off to the most dangerous part of the Middle East sounds like a lot of work," Landon says. Again, it's hard to tell if he's joking. "We tried framing him before," Isabel points out. "Somehow he was always a step ahead." "But we're not kids anymore," Chad says, his tone rising. "If we put our heads together, I'm sure we'd come up with a way to get him locked up. It's a hell of a lot better than us murdering someone, even if they deserve it." Dallin and I look at each other, and there's a whole silent conversation that happens between us. Neither of us thinks this will work. It won't be over till it's over. But we're willing to give it a try. "Fine," Dallin says, looking at the phone again. "Everyone come up with an idea tonight, a way to get Harlan arrested for something new. We'll talk again tomorrow night." Chad and Isabel agree, and we end the call. "This is just a way for us to get caught," Landon says from his position in my kitchen. "Maybe," Dallin says as he folds his arms and leans against the other counter, mirroring Landon. "But it feels better than jumping back into the method that almost got Cassidy and I killed." Landon swallows and looks away, but doesn't say anything. He messed up that night, and Dallin and I almost died because of it. Not that everything that went wrong that night was his fault. A lot of things didn't go according to plan. "You two sure have got people in town talking," Landon says, changing the subject. "The word is wide out there that the two of you are dating." Dallin and I look at each other but don't say anything. It's literally been 2 days. Half of the South Island knows. Apparently there's nothing better to gossip about in this small community at the moment. What about you? I ask, changing the subject again. You keeping your windows locked? Avoiding going out alone? Landon nods. I've already had security cameras installed a month ago. Adeline is getting a little sick of me being by her side every damn second, but a few more presents and she's forgiven me. I don't know what to say about that. I'd never call his fiancée a gold digger to his face, but from his own words... Keep in touch, I say as he makes a move for the front door. Be careful driving home. He just nods and walks out. Dallin and I both watch him walk to his car, keeping an eye on the dark evening. We keep watching until Landon gets in, backs out of the driveway, and pulls down the road. We close the door when he disappears, and I drop onto the couch, pulling the book of confessions out from behind a pillow. Dallin watches me do it, his lips set in a thin line. He wants to get rid of the book, I can tell. But I just can't. Not until I've reread the whole thing. Until I remember everything we did wrong. Until I remember why we got tangled into this in the first place. Because I keep thinking that I should have just returned the notebook to Emma and not said anything. My life would be so much easier. But as I open the notebook and skim through those first 18 pages, I remember exactly why I couldn't do that when I was 17 years old. Emma went into Harlan's custody. For a while, it seemed normal, safe. But the signs started cropping up. Lingering stares, the lock to her bedroom somehow breaking, sleepovers in his bed while watching movies. And then a kiss he apologized for, his hand on her thigh whenever they drove anywhere. He raped her for the first time when she was 16 years old. The frequency increased over the next few years. It became almost a nightly thing. And when she resisted, when he thought she'd say anything, he'd hurt her. He was careful to place the hits in locations that could be hidden. Her midsection, her upper legs, upper arms. But it grew to other locations. She learned how to use makeup. And she never said anything. Because it was foster care for her after Harlan. I could never understand how foster care could ever be worse than rape and abuse. But Emma's mind lived in fear of change. She was in survival mode. Make it to 18. Escape. But I was there. I read it when she turned 18 and nothing different happened. She still stayed and she could never tell us why. So I decided to care. Chad decided he cared. Landon wanted to kill Mr. Anderson right in front of the entire class. He wanted to be the hero to save the girl he'd been in love with for a year. And Dallin wasn't going to let her continue being abused. Isabel took to Emma the second I spilled all the secrets of the Book of Confessions. I turn a few pages, and my eyes go to our first confession, written in Isabel's handwriting. November 24th, 2009. Since Emma won't come forward, we figured we'd nail him for what he's doing. Sexual abuse of a child. Emma might be 18 now, but all of this started when she was a kid. All 5 of us created fake email accounts from the computers at that stupid internet cafe. And then we sent him the most horrible things I've ever seen. We sent him child porn, pictures and videos, saying they were the things he requested. We sent them to his school email. Dozens of pictures and videos. I think we're already worse people for having to go find them and determine what was bad enough, disgusting enough, horrifying enough to send to him. I think I lost a little piece of my soul today. But if it gets him locked up, it'll be worth it. We've got you, Emma. I shake my head in disgust. I well remember the horrifying task of looking through things I never wanted to see. What Isabel said was true. I did feel like I lost a piece of my soul. I felt disgusting and evil after, but mostly exceptionally horrified that this kind of vile stuff existed in this world. This turned some people on. There were people who took these photos, filmed these videos. I flipped the page, cutting off my thoughts. I didn't want to do that. I tried to suggest something else. I'm not that person. It's over, in the past. The next page holds Chad's handwriting. November 29th, 2009. It almost worked. There were police at school the day we came back from Thanksgiving break. We had a sub for biology. I caught a glimpse of Mr. Anderson in the principal's office, looking very stressed out. There were 2 police cars parked in front of the school. The police and the school brought in an IT guy. It almost worked. But somehow Mr. Anderson talked his way out of it. The pictures had been sent to him by obviously fake accounts from a public IP address. It wasn't like he'd sent them. It wasn't as if he'd downloaded any of the things sent to him. They created a new email account for him and upped the firewalls, or whatever, for the entire school district. And today he was back in class, teaching like nothing had ever happened. A disgusting prank. That's what they wrote it off as. And there he was again. We've got to think of something different. I cover my mouth with my hand, letting my eyes rise up. Dallin works in the kitchen, cooking dinner. It's so normal. But I can't get my head out of the past, out of what we did. So I turn the page, and I read the next entry. December 8th, 2009. Leave me alone. Seriously, I can't believe you did that, Isabel. It's bad enough that you know the truth, that you know as many details as you do. But to sneak into my windows and take pictures? To make me look at the evidence? I don't want any of you involved anymore. I'll take care of myself. Stay away. And burn this book once you've all read this. Emma's words are written angrily. Big wet marks stain the pages, tears that fell and bled the ink. It was our next move. It was Isabel and Chad that came up with the idea. They went to the house Mr. Anderson and Emma were living in. They scouted it all out the day before. They knew where the bedrooms were. They brought a ladder. Isabel brought her camera. She took pictures. She had them printed the next morning. And then she'd pulled me and Emma into the girls' bathroom and showed them to us. The evidence was undeniable. That was Mr. Anderson, having sex with Emma. But neither Isabel or I could have anticipated Emma's reaction. She'd freaked out. She'd screamed at us, sworn at us. She'd taken the pictures and torn them up into little pieces before flushing them down the toilet. She demanded Isabel delete the originals from her camera. She'd stormed out. And then Isabel found the book of confessions in her car after school with this entry. The 5 of us didn't know what to do. Emma wouldn't talk to us. She wouldn't even look at us. And if Emma didn't want our help, what were we supposed to do? Why do you think Emma got so upset about those pictures Isabel took? I asked Alan as he finished his dinner. I close the notebook and walk into the kitchen, setting it on the counter. Dallin turns back to the stove, turning the burner off. It was bad enough seeing it from her point of view for all those years. Isabel showed her what it looked like to an outsider. Like they were lovers. But anyone could see the vacant look in Emma's eyes. She wasn't in that room with Harlan doing the things he did to her. It was actually kind of scary, I say as I help Dallin carry everything to the table. I've never seen anyone freak out like that. We sit and set to dishing up. I can't even imagine what he did to her mentally, considering she never went and told anyone, Dallin says. You know it couldn't just be physical abuse. She wouldn't even consider turning him in. He had to have tied her mind into a million knots. Seeing those pictures, I think it just might have broken her. I nod and my stomach turns. I look down at the food on my plate. I'm still not hungry, though I should be. I only ate lunch, and I didn't even finish it. I really don't feel like eating. But it was thoughtful of Dallin to make it, so I forced myself to take the first bite. I can't think of anything to frame him with, Dallin says, pulling me back to reality. Nothing believable. Saying he stole one of our cars is implausible. Saying he broke into our houses doesn't work without video evidence. The only thing that I think works is if one of his students says he did something inappropriate. They take that a lot more seriously these days. But there's no way we can ask a kid to get involved with this. He looks up, staring at the wall. We're supposed to be coming up with ways to get Harlan arrested. I could keep an eye on his classroom, I say. We knew he was a perv back then. Not that he ever did anything to anyone but Emma, but his eyes wandered where they shouldn't. He smiled too much. That's not enough, Dallin says, shaking his head. Some people will write that off as a man just being a man. It's not right, but it will get written off. I stab my fork into the chicken with force. He's right. We'll sleep on it, I say, though I doubt my own words. Maybe something will hit us during the night. Dallin nods, but I sense his doubt, too. This is the problem in trying to take down someone who only ever did one serious thing wrong. No one sees the darkness when he looks so light in so many other ways. This isn't going to work. I already know it. But I'm not exactly ready to grab a gun and shoot him dead just yet. Chapter 8. For just a little bit, I forget about it all. Day 2 of school, and I'm in full swing. We get rolling with assignments. I give out books. We go over the schedule. I inform them their first test is in 2 weeks. I teach, because I'm a teacher. This is what I went to school for. This is what I did my student teaching in. This has been my job and my livelihood for going on 5 years now. So for just a little bit, I forget everything else. I just do my job. I take note of the kids that are going to be trouble this year. The boys who sit in the back, talking and making jokes, flirting with me. The ones who think they're hiding their phones, but no one just sits and stares at their crotch. I note the kids who are going to take some effort to break out of their shells. I take notice of the ones I know are going to excel. And I try to look for any warning signs. Are there any kids here who are going through what Emma went through? But I push even that thought aside. I just need to do my job for a few hours. When the lunch bell rings, I walk determined and confident down the hall, headed for the teacher's lounge. Dallin is back at the house, installing the security cameras he ordered. He'll be coming here after school is over and installing them in my classroom. So for today, I'm on my own for lunch. I walk in, holding my bag, and look around. There are 4 tables in here, as well as a couch that faces a dated TV with terrible antenna reception. There's a kitchenette along the wall to the left, with a microwave, a sink, and a full-sized refrigerator and freezer. I spy Ava at one table toward the back. With an excited smile, she waves me over. Quickly, I scan the rest of the room. To my relief, Harlan isn't here. "So, how was your romantic lunch date with Mr. Brooding Hot Stuff yesterday?" Ava asks with a coy grin as I sit beside her. "Mr. Brooding Hot Stuff?" I question with a raised eyebrow. I pull out the leftovers he packed up for me, and something flutters in my stomach. "Come on, Cass," she says, wiggling her eyebrows as she stabs a fork into her salad. "Dallin is hot. Just because it took you 10 years to notice doesn't mean it took the rest of us that long to realize." I huff a laugh and shake my head, but her comment throws me off, and I have to think. Dallin's hair is longer, to his shoulders. It hangs around his face in messy, dark brown waves. It matches his brown eyes, set under heavy brows. There's a slight kink to his nose, from when he broke it playing football his junior year. But his shoulders are wide, the muscles in his forearms something to appreciate. Considering everything, I've never really thought about it. But she's not wrong. Dallin is hot. "I saw him drop you off this morning," Ava continues. "Things must be getting serious if you're already living together." I look down at my food so she can't try to interpret my expression. "It's all happened a lot faster than I would have anticipated." "Well, it's obvious he's in this for the long haul," she says. "I've seen the look in his eyes when he's looking at you." I don't get a chance to set her straight because 2 other teachers walk in, Mr. Perry and Mr. Anderson. Our eyes meet for a moment. Harlan gives a nod, a small smile, sending my stomach cold and sinking. But he looks away, following Mr. Perry to the fridge to collect their lunches, and they take a seat at another table. "You really weren't a fan of his, were you?" Ava leans in toward me, whispering low and quiet. I glance from Harlan to Ava, seeing she's staring at him. "He failed me my senior year and got me kicked off the drill team," I say, not even having to lie. "I guess I just never got over it." "Well, maybe cut him a little slack," she says, still keeping her voice low. "Apparently, he spent the last couple of years trying to find his wife, who took off on him. He found her a few months ago, but I guess she totally rejected him. He's just trying to start over and move on. He seems like a really nice guy." My stomach goes cold and I look over at Ava, hoping I don't look like a completely sketched-out psychopath. "Where'd you hear that?" "He was telling it to Mr. Perry yesterday during lunch," Ava says, glancing at the man. "Poor guy. Seems pretty wrecked about it. You can tell he really loved her, but she just ripped his heart out after all that effort of trying to find her. The food sticks in my throat. It takes everything I have to swallow it down. It falls into my stomach in a hard lump. Cass? Ava says, drawing my eyes back to hers. You okay? You look sick. I shake my head. Yeah, I say with a hoarse voice. Just first week jitters. And I didn't get much sleep last night. Or the night before. I'll have to have a talk with Dallin for you, she says, wiggling her eyebrows again, a teasing smile on her lips. I try to smile for her benefit. I tell her I need to get back to my classroom. I stuff my containers back into the bag and stand. Harlan meets my eyes as I walk toward the door. A shiver walks its way down my spine. I'm looking at those green eyes from beneath the water. He just stares, his lips a thin line. They curl into a small, controlled smile, just before I walk out the door. The second I got back to my classroom, I sit on the edge of my desk and call Dallin. A friend just told me she overheard Harlan telling someone that he spent the last few years trying to track down his wife. I blurt it all out the second he answers with a ready for action. You okay? She said his wife rejected him a few months ago and now he's here trying to get his life back on track. So that's the story he's going with, Dallin says, his voice hardening with disgust. But that sounds like he found her then. And things must have not gone too well for Harlan. Or not so well for Emma, I say. What if he killed her and then ran back across the country as far away as he could get? Hang on, I'm going to dial in Isabel, Dallin says. It's quiet for a minute. And then Isabel connects. Any more luck in finding Emma? Dallin asks. Not yet, Isabel answers. But the manager of her last apartment in Ohio said he did see her take off in her car the night before she abandoned her lease. Had some boxes. He said it looked like she was moving out with only the important things. Sounds like she's alive then, I say, feeling a little relief. Sounds like she was running, Dallin says. You said she'd been in Ohio. How close to the border of Michigan? Within 20 minutes, Isabel says after a moment of consideration. Why? Because if Harlan was working in Michigan, who's to say he wasn't right on the border? He could have been checking in on Emma without her knowing. It wouldn't have sounded like he was stalking her, being in another state. Dallin tries to patch in Chad then, because Chad is supposed to be looking into Harlan's past, but he doesn't answer. I'll bet you anything he was within an hour of the border, likely less. If Harlan spent years trying to track down Emma, that would explain why Chad can't find anything more on him, I say, quickly filling Isabel in on what I've learned. He wasn't settled in at any one place. He's been hunting her down for a long time. He finally found her, and took his time assessing how best to proceed. Isabel swears. The man's obsessed! Why didn't he just learn no means no when he nearly died a few times? I nod in agreement, though they obviously can't see it. Keep trying to find Emma, Dallin says. I've got to go, I say. The bell's about to ring. It rings right that second. No one really says goodbye as we hang up. I was doing so well my first 3 classes, but I can hardly concentrate during 4th period. My mind is back in the past. I'm filing through that notebook for an entry just after New Year's. My eyes watch the countdown of the last 5 minutes of class. They seem like 50. But finally the bell rings, and all my students spring up from their seats and immediately head out the door. I didn't even give them the homework assignment. There's Dallin, waiting for the kids to clear out, a bag in his hand and a screw gun in the other. I hardly acknowledge him. I pull the book of confessions from my bottom drawer and flip through pages. I land on Landon's entry. January 5th, 2010. We thought we screwed up. That after we jumped Mr. Anderson in the parking lot, he'd taken Emma, killed her, and disappeared. We did screw up. But she's alive. We haven't been able to get a hold of Emma for nearly 3 weeks now. We all drove by their house. No one has been coming in or out. No tracks in the snow. We asked the office after the 3rd day of Mr. Anderson having a sub, and they said he'd gone on vacation, but he'd be back after the holiday break. He was back yesterday. So was Emma. We pulled her into the locker room and she told us what happened. The day after we jumped Mr. Anderson, he stayed home, trying to recover from everything. He couldn't show up at school looking like that. He'd kept Emma home, too. Then he told her to pack a bag. They were going on a trip. They went to Vegas. Emma said he got a super fancy room right on the Strip. And then he took her to the Little White Chapel. They got married. Legally, Emma is married to Harlan Anderson. There's all kinds of different laws, state by state, about raping your own wife. There's a lot of controversy about convictions. He just took this further. He made Emma marry him. Her husband, his wife. Then he kept her there in Vegas for 2.5 weeks on their honeymoon. Now they're back. She isn't wearing a ring. Neither is he. But Emma showed us a copy of the legal papers. It looks legit to me. He forced her to marry him. We've got to kill him. Because if he's willing to force her into marrying him, what's next? I'll tell you. It's Harlan killing Emma. I shake my head, forcing myself not to throw up. His wife. Harlan is telling people he spent the last few years trying to find his wife, who abandoned him. That he'd gotten his heart broken when he found her and she rejected him. She was 18, and he was 31.